Day 414 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine today. So we'll start out with taking a quick look at those Russian military losses again, and currently Russia is sitting on 180,000, so hit a new milestone there, and 590 military personnel losses. Then when we take a look at the hardware losses, so 10 APVs, 7 artillery, 1 air defense system, but no tanks today. Now, is this because Russian cope cones have started working all of a sudden, or is it because of something much more sinister than that? And in the news section shortly, I'll shed some interesting light on that one. Then we'll start out in Russia today as a fuel depot of the Russian army spontaneously combusted once more in Moscovia. I'm not even going to speculate as to why at this point. I've speculated enough. It's just all too frequent these days. Then we'll move back across into the Ukrainian map. We'll start out in the Donbass again, and just to the western side of it, western northish. So we're talking about Sloviansk as the Russian army launched 2 S-300 missiles at Sloviansk there today. No casualties reported, but this always feels like one of those quintessential pictures of what Russian liberation actually looks like because of the children's slide in the foreground there. Then we'll move down just a little bit to Bakhmut. So the fight for Bakhmut is still ongoing. True story. Now, Russia's Wagner forces are reattempting attacks from the northwest, but interestingly, they haven't solidified any new positions yet in the last day, up or even past the train tracks there. So that's quite surprising. I might have expected them to take those gains already. But interestingly, from a political perspective perhaps, there has been some talk of the genuine Russian forces overtaking Prigozhin's Wagner forces in the Donbass really recently, which will probably lead to some strange outcomes if true, because it would mean all of the knowledge and strategy obtained by those various Wagner forces in those areas would not get effectively communicated to the regular Russian army. And that's something I'm willing to bet on, which means hard lessons may need to be learnt by Russia in the Donbass all over again. And I'm talking veritable killbox style. Oh, and at the same time, Uncle Prigozhin, seedy Uncle Prigozhin, has been calling for the entire Russian society to mobilize now. So military mobilization for everybody, or at least the men. And you know, he's not wrong, and I've yapped on about this plenty before, as Russia started erroneously with a limited military operation, then basically had this trickle-in mobilization ever since. However, the Russian societal and political will is just not there for a full general mobilization. Plus, to do that, they'd have to officially backtrack and then start calling it a war, which up until this point is something that Putin is still way too proud to call it that. Then moving down a bit to Avdiivka and the surrounding regions, Russia is still looking to encircle this fortified town, particularly from the north at the moment, but no real gains to speak of in days. No real gains at all in days. Oh, and nearby to here, a rare Russian Nona K mortar was destroyed as well, so kaboom. Then we'll move across to Zaporizhia just quickly, as the UK Ministry of Defence has communicated that Russia has completed 3 lines of defence that extend about 120 kilometers, or about 75-80 miles or so, along the span of the occupied oblast there, which can be an obstacle, but their utility is almost entirely dependent on them being supported by sufficient artillery and personnel. So we're talking about sufficient Russian military and personnel there. And of course, defenses like these are a sure sign of Russian concerns about an upcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive in the region, specifically with concerns about things like Challenger and Abrams tanks rolling right in. Then we'll move down to Crimea momentarily, as Russia continues to make more sand trench preparations on the coast of occupied Crimea right there. Even though Ukraine really doesn't have a navy to speak of, let alone any sort of amphibious assault capability. But you do you, Russia. You do you. Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Then we'll move across to some news for today. We'll start out with some hardware news. So the US and South Korea agreed on the lease of 500,000 artillery ammunition pieces for supply to Ukraine. Now, Ukraine is always running low on artillery shells, but as it turns out, so is Russia. But the biggest difference here, however, is that over time, the sheer amount of the Western industrial capacity just simply cannot be challenged. As countries from all over the world, not just NATO countries, but all sorts of countries, Pakistan even, continue to build up or supply these types of arms to Ukraine. Then in some other hardware news, Spain plans to send 6 of its Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine in just the coming days, with a bit of a sweetener there as well, with an additional 20 Spanish M113 armored personnel carriers as well. So great to see there. And then moving on to some other interesting news. So Russia's annual May 9th parades have been cancelled in many regions, including the Kursk and the Belgorod oblasts, but also the occupied Crimean territory as well. Now, some Russian authorities officially said the reason was due to security concerns, but a few of the city's governors instead flat out just came out and said that they don't have any of the material, such as tanks, for the parade because everything has gone to the front line, which is all very interesting to me. But in the end, hey, you simply cannot have a military parade without a military. Oh, and what's more upsetting is that their May 9th military parade is actually called a victory parade. Oh, the irony. Then, in some more news from a land far away, a Russian T-90 tank was spotted in Louisiana of the United States. Now, this tank was captured on September 25th, 2022, and no doubt the States will tinker with some of the best tanks that Russia has to offer, and I use the term best quite loosely there. Then moving on, so this day a year ago, the Russian pride of the Black Sea fleet sank, so the Moskva. Or at least it was hit by 2 Ukrainian indigenously designed and built Neptune missiles, causing massive fires, followed by Russia's best excuse ever about Igor's smoking habits, followed by the sinking of the ship on the following day. $760 million worth, which changed the calculus of the war, at least as far as the Black Sea goes, as it led to a total withdrawal of all Russian operations in the western half of the Black Sea. It simply wasn't safe enough for them to be there anymore. Then a bit of a shorter day today. It's a bit of a shame as I've got a lot of the good stuff to show you guys still, but I'll have to leave that for another day. So for a quick 5-second funny today, Ukrainian munitions in the field are now up in their meme game with the Rico Kaboom meme, and I am for one so very happy to see that. Makes me smile and laugh. So thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and I do hope to see all of you guys there on the next one. Cheers.